Hello everyone, myself Ruchi Patel, working as an assistant professor at LJ College of Physiotherapy. Today I am going to take third year topic, that is posture evaluation. In previous lecture, we have studied about the posture definition, types of posture, that is good posture and bad posture, and what are the factors which are responsible for to maintaining the postures. And in today's lecture, we are going to learn about the different spinal deformities. So after knowing this about the spinal deformities, and if we are knowing about the good posture and bad posture, then and then only we can proceed for the postural assessment or postural evaluation. So let's start with the today's presentation. So in today's presentations, we are going to include the main common spinal deformities that are the lordosis, kyphosis, and scoliosis. As we all know, during the for the newborn baby or during the fetal development, there will be the primary curves which are present, and these curves are present in the thoracic and the sacral region, and that is the posterior curve. So once the once the child will grow up, then once the child will lift the head up, their secondary curve will get developed, and once the child will walk, then again the secondary curve in the lumbar region will get developed, and the secondary curves are called as a lordosis, that is normally present in the individual, and it is in the cervical and the lumbar region, whereas the primary curve, that is the posterior convexity concavity, and these curves are present in the thoracic and the sacrum region. So we'll start with the lordosis. So as we all know, the lordosis is the anterior curvature of the spine, and pathologically it is the exaggeration of the normal curve which is found in the cervical and the lumbar region. So there are many causes which are responsible for this excessive lordosis. So there is a postural functional deformities. Then there will be the responsible muscles. If the abdominal muscles are abdominal muscles, especially in the combinations with the tight muscles, if abdominal muscles are weak and the back extensors and the hip extensors muscles are weak and the hip flexors muscles are tight, then this type of lordosis will get developed. So mainly the hip flexors flexors and back extensors are tight, and the abdominal flexors, that is abdominal muscles, and the gluteus muscles, that is the hip extensors muscles are weak, then they can produce this lordosis. Then heavy abdomen resulting from the excessive weight or the pregnancy. Then compensatory mechanism as a result of other deformities like kyphosis. Then tight and commonly strong muscles, as I said. Then spondylolisthesis, that is the displacement of the one vertebral body over the other. The congenital problems such as the bilateral congenital dislocation of the hip, and the wearing the high heels shoes, that is for the fashion, that also be responsible to increase the lumbar lordosis. There are the two types of exaggerated lordosis, that is the pathological lordosis and sweep back deformity. So here the pathological lordosis, there are the many factors or many changes which we can see in the body. So as I said, the common muscles, that is the lumbar erector spinae back extensors muscles, then hip flexors muscles, this upper trapezius muscles, pectoralis major and minor muscles, then levator scapulae, sternocleidomastoid muscles. So this all the muscles are will get shortened. Okay. Whereas in the case of abdominal muscles, then small lumbar spine muscles, that is multifidus muscles. Then we can say about the upper thoracic muscles. So these all are getting weakened, and as a result, this produce the pathological lordosis. So the segments, that is pelvis, is excessively anteriorly tilted, knee will be in the hyperextended, and ankle also will be slightly in the plantar flexed position. So we can say almost the joints which are affected for this lordosis are the first lumbar region, lumbar spine, then pelvic, thoracic spine, hip is also affected, and scapulothoracic region, and atlantoaxial, cervical region, temporomandibular joint, all will get affected. So here you all can see the lordosis. Here this arrow is indicating the excessive anterior exaggeration of the curve, and this arrow is indicating excessive anterior pelvic tilt. Then we have sway back deformities. So with the sway back deformity, there is an increased pelvic inclination approximately 40 degree, and thoracolumbar spine exhibits kyphosis. So for this deformity, the thoracolumbar area will go for the kyphosis, and this lumbar area will go for the excessive lordosis. And this with this deformity, the entire pelvic shifts in the anterior and causing the hips to move into the extension position. So to maintain the center of gravity in its normal position, the thoracic spine flexes the lumbar spine. Okay, so there is a result, there will be a lumbar and thoracic excessive curves, and such deformities may be associated with the tightness of the hip extensors muscle, lower lumbar extensors muscles, upper abdominal muscles, and along with the hip flexors, lower abdominal muscles weakness. So here you all can see this is the kyphosis which is present in the thoracic region, and as a result there will be the lumbar area, there will be the lordosis, there is a knee or a hip extension, knee exaggerated extension, there is an anterior shifting of the pelvis will be seen. So these are the changes which are associated with the sway back deformities. Okay. Then we have kyphosis. So kyphosis is the posterior curvature of the spine, and pathologically it is exaggerated posterior curvature of the thoracic spine. And there are the several causes which are responsible for the kyphosis, excessive kyphosis. So there is a tuberculosis, vertebral compression of the fractures, then juvenile kyphosis, ankylosing spondylitis, senile or osteoporosis, that is the osteoporosis that is a result of a deficiency of the calcium, and mainly it is seen in the geriatric patients. Tumors, compression in conjunctions with the lordosis, and the congenital anomalies. So sometimes the paralysis may lead to kyphosis because the loss of muscle tone, and that is help to maintain the erect posture. Okay. So there are the different types of kyphosis: round back, hump back, flat back, and Dovger's hump. So round back. So the patient with the round back has a long rounded curve and with the decreased pelvis inclination. The patient often presents with the trunk flexed position. Whenever we ask the patient to flex in the forward direction, this hump will be prominent. And on examination, we'll find that their hip extensors muscles and the trunk flexors muscles uh, will be in the tightened position, and this hip flexors muscles and lumbar extensors muscles will get weak. So that will be the opposite, whatever the things we get in the lordosis, just opposite to this. Here the tightened muscles will be hip extensors and the abdominal muscles, whereas the weak muscles are the hip flexors and the lumbar extensors. Then humpback or gibbous. So with the humpback, there is a localized sharp posterior angulation. So here you all can see there is a localized sharp angulation which we can find easily. And as a result of fractures or pathology, this type of deformities will get developed. Other is the flat back deformity. There will be decreased in the pelvic inclinations to 20 degree. There will be less lordosis on the lumbar region, and as a result, there will be increased the angulation at the thoracic region. Okay. Then the last deformities in the Dovgren's hump. In this, the often it is present in the older individual, just result of the osteoporosis, and in the thoracic vertebral bodies. So that produces the compression of the vertebrae, and there will be the degeneration and wedges in the anterior direction. Then we have scoliosis, that is the lateral curvature of the spine, and this type of deformity, it is often associated with the, or it is with the pathology, and there will be the structural or non-structural scoliosis, and this also seen in the cervical region. If it is present in the cervical, then it is called as the torticollis. So the torticollis, that is seen in the cervical, and in the lumbar there will be seen the scoliosis deformity, and this deformity, it is called as the lateral curvature of the spine. As I said, that is the non-structural or functional and structural. So non-structural or functional deformities, we can correct it by the proper guidance and proper exercises. The structural deformities, at least we can reduce the symptoms which are present. So these are the difference between the non-structural and structural scoliosis. Mainly with the this non-structural scoliosis, there will be no bony deformities, whereas in the case of structural scoliosis, there will be the bony deformities prominently seen. Then there will be no normal flexibility seen in the patient. Then in the side bending, this is usually asymmetric in the case of non-structural scoliosis. In the structural scoliosis, side bending becomes asymmetrical. So in the case of non-structural, it is symmetrical. So this type of scoliosis, that is non-structural, it is not progressive, whereas structural scoliosis, that is progressive in nature. This curve disappears when we do the forward flexion, but this curve, that is the structural curve, that will not get disappears when we'll ask the patient to move in the forward direction. And this type of, that is the non-structural scoliosis, will found in the cervical, lumbar and thoracolumbar region, and the structural scoliosis, mainly it is found in the thoracic and thoracolumbar spine. Okay, so the problem, the involves the deformities, that is the for the non-structural scoliosis, that is the postural deformities, postural problems will be there, then emotional problems, nerve root irritations, inflammations, compression caused by the leg length discrepancy, and contractures. So this all can produce the non-structural scoliosis. If it is possible to cure this problem, then definitely we can cover this excessive scoliosis posture as well. Whereas in the case of structural scoliosis, the primary deformities, mainly it is the associated with the congenital anomalies, and there is excessive the conditions like the quadriplegia, vertebral wedges of the vertebrae, hemivertebrae, failures of the segmentation. So these are the factors which are responsible. So we have idiopathic scoliosis, that is 75 to 85% of the cases are the idiopathic scoliosis. And the vertebral body rotates on the convexity of the curve, with the spinous process going towards the concavity of the curve. Okay, so these are the changes which are associated with the postural scoliosis. So here also the muscles which are tightened and which will become weak, that we should know. So here we all should know about the commonly affected joints, that is the lumbar spine, thoracic spine, hip joints, pelvic region, foot, scapulothoracic joints are the mainly involved. the main joints, main muscles which are commonly weak, that are the on the convex side of the muscles, will get weaker, and hip abductors muscles on the concave side, and the foot pronators muscles on the long side will get affected. Okay, so these are the deformities which we can see in the case of scoliosis. So this is a brief idea related to the spinal deformities. You all can study in the detail related to the deformities, and in the coming lecture we are going to learn about the assessment part. Thank you.